What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin Cash. Shout out to the Dragon Riders and shout out to the House of the Dragon. Hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you haven't. Let's get started. Let's not talk. Let's not dilly-dally too much more. We're looking at the price action here for Bitcoin Cash on this, the 6th of December, very early hours, right? We're like not even 4 hours into the new day here, or maybe just about 4 hours, actually. No, 3 hours. We're 3 hours into the new day. Holding support here, holding resistance here, and it looks kind of like a nice parallel trend up, right? Kind of. You didn't hold support at this bottom line here, but it is somewhat of a nice parallel trend up. To me, it just seems like we're in this move faced upwards, and we're halfway through it right now, if that even, right? Like we've got more to go. Probably not even halfway through if we're going to meet the targets that I'm expecting by the end of this move. Unfortunately, we did not get the break that we were looking for with yesterday's move above 100K for Bitcoin, right? We prodded. We got the furthest away from this line than we ever have in this thing's history, but we did not get, I don't think we got the close above. Let's see. We did not get the close above. We did close some 4-hour candles, but it was a straight shot down. Literally last candle of the day, that's the one that we closed to make the day close right below this line. We're getting close, you guys. Okay, let's go back in time real quick. Take a stroll through memory lane with this line, and we'll go back and look. Okay, so back this time here, you tipped it like 4 times, and then you moved down. That was it, right? Didn't really consolidate up here for too much, and you had some pretty severe bearish divergence forming there, right? Yeah. Okay, so a little bit there. We go back even more in time, way back, all the way here to the very first occurrence in, no. Is that a next one? Oh, okay. No. That was, I'm sorry. I got the last one confused with this one. This one here, again, bearish divergence to form the top. And here you lingered kind of overall, but the interactions you had with this line, it was like really 1 or 2, to be completely fair. You didn't really interact with this line, and whenever you did finally touch it, that's when you sold off, like rather immediately, right? You kind of messed around for a second, but you didn't linger up here for too long. And again, bearish divergence on the daily RSI, right? That was actually like double or triple bearish divergence, very intense with your volume and everything, very intense. I have a purpose, I promise you. It's gonna become clear in just a second, but we got to talk about this. All right, so here, tipped it, blow off top, very first time that line ever came into existence, so I mean, it's not really much to compare here, but no bearish divergence, but absolutely a blow off top, different than anything we've seen so far, and not in a good way. So now let's go back, all the way back to where we are here. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4 days. It's the only time that we've had readings above the line. And not only that, out of these 4 days, 3 of those days have, including today, have prodded above this line, right? We do not have bearish divergence on the daily RSI. I suppose you could make the argument that this is, but it's not. It's not, right? Because this, you have higher highs here, right? That's not, the divergence argument could have been made for this one if we had like higher highs there, right? That argument could have been made, and arguably we did fulfill that. We had divergence between this high and that high there. We pulled back right to where the divergence formed, and then we moved up again, right? So I don't think we actually have bearish divergence on the RSI. If anything, it looks more like it's in an uptrend. And, you know, I guess people could make the argument, they're like, oh, he's nitpicking, but I wouldn't call that bearish divergence, personally. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I think you're the one that's nitpicking, you know? Like this is not bearish divergence here. It's too far away. It's absolutely too far away. If you think that's bearish divergence, no wonder you're probably getting it wrong a lot of the time, right? I used to do that whenever I started trading, but it takes a little bit of experience to refine these looks, right? Not everything is exactly as it appears, but we are chilling. We are chilling in the overbought zone on the daily, and we haven't really gone anywhere in 3 days, so that's normally not a good thing. We don't need the bearish divergence to tell us that it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to just be chilling in the overbought zone and not be making any headway. So we need to, either today or tomorrow, certainly by the end of this week, but really the sooner the better, we need to get going. Because if not, if we don't move up now, we have all the right things in all the right places to move up. That means if we're not strong enough to do it here, when we've literally got the right atmosphere to do it, we'd probably have to pull back, gather some supplies so that we can make another attempt, and then we're even more set for this move. And that's okay if that happens, right? It just means it's not happening now, it's happening later. And if you're like me, feels like we've been waiting for a long time. And it's not that I'm impatient. I'm just ready. I'm ready. I think I can speak for all of us, all the Dragon Riders in the house, whenever I say that we're ready for this thing to really take off. We're flapping the wings right now, right? Shaking the tail a little bit, ruffling our scales, but we're not airborne just yet. It's definitely reminiscent of the good times, right? We're definitely at some relative highs for the cycle so far, but I think we have a lot higher to go. Looking at the weekly RSI, we did just get overbought. This weekly look itself has me very bullish that we are going to continue upwards. It makes sense if we look at it actually on the daily perspective with how we kind of crawled through the 618. The fact that we tipped the 886, it makes sense that we'd find resistance there and probably consolidate a little bit more before moving up. But we are on the precipice. We are literally on the precipice right now of seeing prices above $1,000, above $1,300, and even above last cycle's high. Those are all targets that are likely to happen, if not by, I mean, obviously by the end of the month for something above $1,000. But these higher targets, if they don't happen by the end of the month, sometime by the end of January is what I would expect. Nothing like that has really changed, right? It's all the same stuff. Just wanted to kind of do a general update. Looking at the price action here, I'm not worried about the charts at all. The 4-hour looks great. You're moving down, volume's dying off. That's fine, you know. Higher lows, higher highs, lower lows in the RSI, higher lows in the price. That's a good thing. So yeah, I'm not worried about it at all. We look at BCH, BTC. Go on the daily perspective. Yesterday, Bitcoin had a bit of a rough day. Bitcoin Cash closed 2.5% in the green versus Bitcoin. So, you know, if Bitcoin's having a rough time and Bitcoin Cash is at least not having as bad of a time or better of a time, that's a good thing. And if you look at the BCH BTC chart, this really says it all, right? Absolutely, we are breaking out of this like long phase consolidation, right? We thought it was over here. We just slowly kept bleeding week after week after week, just slowly kept bleeding. We're absolutely in a breakout phase with the BCH BTC chart. The weekly RSI looks poised and ready to move higher. It absolutely does. I would expect that we are returning to the top of this range here, only to, oops, I didn't mean to do all that, only to break it this time. Not to find resistance here, but to break it. So things are looking good in that aspect. Daily RSI looks really good as well. No bearish divergence. 4-hour looks really good. Yeah, it all. So this tells me we're going to be gaining value versus Bitcoin, right? Even if Bitcoin Cash isn't making a lot of impressive moves right now, it is going to be gaining value versus Bitcoin. And that in itself is impressive enough because that gets this chart looking more bullish. The more likely that it looks like we're going up here, the more that just pushes the narrative that Bitcoin Cash is about to rip and that it probably will rip. You can't make a move like this versus Bitcoin while Bitcoin's doing stuff like this. You can't do this unless your underlying asset, Bitcoin Cash, is also ripping. So again, I mean, just assuming here, I'm just assuming by the end of this move we'll be up here. That's a 74% gain versus Bitcoin. Like if Bitcoin were to move up 10%, Bitcoin Cash moved up 84%. Or no, I'm sorry, not 84. It would have moved up no, is that right? 10%? If Bitcoin Cash did a 74% gain on Bitcoin, then yes, it would have been 84%. Yes, right? Is that right? Yeah. I'm sorry. That took me a second, but I'm fairly positive if Bitcoin moves up 10%, and this chart here is saying that we have the potential growth of like 74-75% versus Bitcoin by the end of this move, likely, right? I would expect that this happens by the same time that we make this happen with Bitcoin Cash, where we're up at this 1,700 to 2K area, right? Or more. We always could go higher, right? A lot of people think I'm crazy for saying that we'd go this high in that amount of time, but we could go higher. It absolutely can go higher. You don't underestimate crypto. You know, overestimating it's not the bad thing. I mean, it's for the long term it can be. if you're overestimating it in the sense of like your long term capacity, sure, but in the short term capacity, in a one cycle outlook, underestimating crypto I think has proven to be worse for most investors than overestimating has been, right? But anyways, that's I guess a philosophical discussion for another time. 74% versus Bitcoin. I'm expecting Bitcoin itself within this next like month and a half period to grow potentially as much. I mean, it could go up to 140. Let's say it doesn't even go to 140. Let's say it only goes to 120. Let's just say it only goes to 120. 24%. If Bitcoin's going to see a 24% growth, that would mean that Bitcoin Cash would have to see a 24% growth. Come on now. 24% growth. just to keep the needle level here with the BCH BTC chart, right? If Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin both moved up 24% in the same amount of time, this thing wouldn't move, okay? If Bitcoin moves up 10%, this thing would move down 10%, right? If Bitcoin Cash didn't move. If Bitcoin moves up 10%, but Bitcoin Cash moves up 30%, then this thing would move up 20, or then this would move up 20%. But we're not calling for it to move up 20%. We're calling for this thing to move up 75%, BCH versus BTC, by the end of this move, 74 to 76% to be completely fair. But let's say 74%. If Bitcoin's expected to move 24%, then 74% gains versus Bitcoin would mean that we would expect that plus 74, which would be 100%, right? 100% move right there. And that would take us to $1,200, right? And this, again, this is all under the assumption that by the end of this move, we haven't broken above this high. We're just here, right? Which we really could, by the end of this Bitcoin Cash move, be above this high. But I would think we're somewhere around it. I'm trying to be conservative. And it's also taking into consideration that Bitcoin underperforms what it's supposed to do in December. If you want to watch my Bitcoin December analysis video, if it'll load here. Let me see. I'll put it in the... No, I'm not going to put it in the description because this is a Bitcoin Cash video. But my Bitcoin December analysis video, if you want to watch that, you can see why I believe Bitcoin won't just see 120, but likely we'll see 130K by the end of this month. And by the end of the move, there's a lot of reasons why it could see 140. But let's say it's not at 120. Let's say we do see that upper side of the range. Maybe we don't get 140. Let's say 135. That's a 40% move. If Bitcoin's moving up 40% and BCH BTC is supposed to gain 74%, 40%, 74%, that's 114%, right? I think so. 40%, 70, yeah, 114. If it's supposed to move, so that would be 100. Am I right? Why am I doing this wrong right now? I'm doing something wrong. We're both to move up 40%. Okay, 40%. But then you move up a whole extra 70% from there, which would be 110, so 114. Why do I feel like that's not right? Why do I feel like I'm doing this wrong? How do you move up 20% more? I don't know. All I'm trying to say, guys, is targets above $1,000 and certainly around $1,300 are very feasible. I think that we could see prices beyond that by the end of this move, obviously, but I feel like I might be doing my math wrong here. I don't know. So before I just keep rambling and doing it wrong, maybe I'll do it in my own time and just verify it, I guess. I don't know. Because does this make sense? If Bitcoin were to move up 20%, 24%, it'd move to 120K. And then that move would put us at about 1,200 for Bitcoin Cash if we're going to see this. But then if you move up another, you move up to like 135K. It's 40%, so it would only add 20% more. 20% more of the gains that you already have from here. That's why it's not that significant. Okay, that makes sense, actually. So it would be like 114, okay, yeah. So then maybe if what I'm saying is to be true, if we are by the end of this move to be above $1,300, to be at $1,700 to $2,000 by the end of this move, then we would see this chart for BCH BTC. We would see it break this consolidation phase and establish its first uptrend. So I'm not necessarily expecting that. It could happen. It just depends, man. It depends. Because I've been calling very confidently for months now that we'd be at 1,700 or higher by the end of this year. And actually, I think I've said 1,300 or 1,200 to 2,000 or something like that for a lot of it. But we've really refined that to 1,700, 1,300 over the past month and a half, I think, specifically. As we continue to progress and we're not really making any headways, I mean, we made a little bit last month, but as time's getting closer to this end of the year mark, this end of the move mark by the end of January, we need to make some strides higher relatively immediately if we do want to see targets that are above 1,300, right? If we want to see those targets around 1,700 to 1,900 like I've been calling for. And it's very possible, I just, again, as time goes on, we're getting closer to these dates without seeing a move that's taken us above this high. It does make me wonder if maybe some rethinking's in order. And if the analysis that I just gave is to be considered, finding resistance up here, maybe for the next move, maybe we consolidate, and then going into April, then we make our breakout move or something like that. I could see that happening, right? If we do break out of this on this move, that would very much validate the idea that we'd see $1,700 to $1,900. But if we move up here and we find resistance just as we have every other time this cycle, and we found support back here, and you know, it can be a significant area to find resistance on. If we do that, which to me seems pretty likely, then likely we wouldn't even break $1,300. We'd probably actually top off between about $1,200 and $1,300. So a little food for thought. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you have any questions, if anything's confusing, just leave a comment. You know, go ahead. If I got something wrong, or if I was close on something, but I needed a little bit extra, you know, and you know what it is, leave it in the comments. Help us all out. Let's figure it out together. But I think that we're on the precipice of breaking out of this very long-term phase of consolidation. We are looking good in the BCH BTC chart. The BCH USD chart's looking good in itself too. As far as how high do we go by the end of this move, you know, my estimates are lowering, right? They're the same. I should say I'm going to keep them the same, but I'm getting less hopeful by the day that we're lingering, right? I want to see this move take place. I want us to move up soon. If we reject from here, if we do consolidate, it's not the end of the world. We're going to move up, but that does take away that time factor. It does narrow that window of opportunity for Bitcoin Cash to see higher prices by the end of the year. So the sooner the better. That's all I got to say. Hit the like button, subscribe. Bye-bye. See you on the next one.